Hi, we're continuing short stories. The first one I want to do today is by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Hawthorne died in about 1865, I think. He's the only author then who is a 19th century author, whom I'm doing anyway. But Young Goodman Brown is a really great short story. Each of these is, I think, great. I want to continue those themes that we mentioned yesterday, self-deception and solipsism, and see what we find of these in all of them. We'll certainly find self-deception very powerfully in the first one, Young Goodman Brown. Okay, the strange name. Hawthorne habitually wrote about the Puritan era earlier. In America, sometime around 1700, 1680 to 1700 was the era that he seemed to like, I think. Okay, and the Salem, England, Salem, Massachusetts, where the famous witch hunts took place, which have been much exaggerated, by the way. One little word about those. If one grants importance to numbers, 19 people were put to death. Well, this is a very small thing compared with the estimate I've read is 250,000 witches were burned, executed somehow in Europe over a period maybe of 250 years. I read a short book about it a long time ago, wanting to know about this. You see what I mean? 250,000. Imagine those lives, the brutality. The point of the author, doesn't matter. The point the author wanted to make was that this was a terrible chapter of European human history, and really it was aimed at women. Now, among these were some men. And among the 19 in Salem were 2 men maybe, but mostly women. A witch, the use of a word like witch, and the terrible violence done against women, it was really a glaring case of misogyny, M-I-S-O-G-Y-N-Y, that is, hatred of women, which generally has to be looked at much more carefully by people, men and women. I must talk about that sometime, because it's important, and I think it's important in Korean culture too, of course. Okay, Young Goodman Brown. At the beginning of the story, Young Goodman Brown has recently gotten married. His wife is Faith. Well, as soon as we see this, we know that probably we are confronted with an allegory. That is, people have symbolic, allegorical meanings. At least Faith pretty obviously does. And this is important. So this is an excellent story for students to pay attention to. Classic. Okay, Young Goodman Brown. It's late in the afternoon, and Young Goodman Brown is saying goodbye to his bride, virtually, Faith. And Faith wears pink ribbons that are very important. In fact, they become kind of the symbol, her symbol. Characters often have symbols right away, and we can associate the character and more with those symbols. Faith says, "Oh, please don't go, please don't go. On this of all nights, please don't go." And he says, it's just this one errand that I must run one night, and then I'll return to you and, quote, ride your skirts to heaven. That's nearly a quote anyway. That's pretty loaded too. Ride your skirts to heaven? Then ride the skirts of Faith to heaven. Okay, maybe. If Faith has to be, one, a woman, and two, why her skirts? That's kind of sexual. A strange saying. The story is not sexual at all. But that image is certainly a brilliant one, actually. It's a brilliant story. Okay. And then he sets out. He leaves the village and he enters the woods. The woods. And of course it's late afternoon, so the woods are already obscure. And soon they will be dark. Dark woods, what do these suggest? Well, the most famous dark woods in literature, used again and again, I think, are the dark woods that Dante Pilgrim was lost in at the beginning of the Divine Comedy. And there they represent what they could represent anywhere. Fear, evil, death. Some values associated with those three, but that's a pretty good start. Okay. And he enters these. Now, it's very important to establish, as he said to his wife, he feels guilty about this, apologetic. It's just something he feels he, quote, has to do. And the woods represent fear, evil, and something like that. Let's focus on evil, because it doesn't represent death. It doesn't represent fear. It represents evil, the dark wood. Okay. He knows he shouldn't be there. And he walks into the dark woods and walks in, but he's thinking, I might turn around and leave and not do this. And just when he thinks he might turn around and not do this, there ahead of him in the dark woods, he sees a man who doesn't move toward him, who seems, I don't know, strangely familiar. And so Goodman Brown goes to him. Now we notice that with each step that he takes to go into these woods, it becomes much more difficult to go out, and much less likely that he will be able to go out. Each step. Evil. What evil? We don't know. Evil. Perhaps we can get some meaning out of that expression that I told you, ride your skirts to heaven. Possible. But that's just one possibility. Sexual evil or something. Some kind of infidelity. Okay. And he goes. And this man, who is he? Now, he's not young. He's very worldly. And he has a twinkle in his eye and a smile, an ironic, sardonic smile on his face. And experienced readers of literature will realize pretty quickly that this is Satan. And if we don't realize it, after a while, we know very well. Okay. And young Goodman Brown, of course, goes to him. He doesn't come to young Goodman Brown. That's interesting. But he is there. He lures him in, so to speak. Just when he was thinking of turning around and going back. We have a moral allegory here, and a very good one. Okay, a moral allegory. That is, the author is going to analyze our moral behavior. Not all the time, but some of the time. Okay. So, and the man turns around and they start walking together into the woods. And young Goodman Brown, after all, he can't be rude. He must accompany this man. And while they're talking, young Goodman Brown says, I know that my father and my grandfather didn't know you, and I'm a little embarrassed that I'm getting to know you. I'm paraphrasing, but definitely what he says about father and grandfather. Oh, I knew your grandfather well, and I knew your father well, especially that time when your grandfather, let's say, set fire to the Indian village. Especially he knew him then, and grandfather knew me, Satan. And father, especially when he, let's say, whipped some witch. Yeah, he knew them. They knew him. Oh no, that's impossible, says young Goodman Brown, because a very important theme is going to arise here, and that is the theme of young Goodman Brown is naive. He's Innocent? Well, we know he's not innocent because he's entered these woods, and he continues to go further and further into the woods. But he is naive. But I'm going to put a question mark behind that, because right away, who's naive? Who's naive about what? And I've raised this question more or less with you middle school students. You middle school students have seen a lot already. Do you watch TV? Have you seen some movies? Do you listen to your friends talk? Are your eyes open and you're looking around? Divorce rate? What? Koreans get divorced? What? That's impossible. If you say that, you're young Goodman Brown, because you're playing a game. You're playing an act. This is self-deception. This story is a profound analysis of self-deception. Okay. What? My father and grandfather knew you? But that's impossible. And just then, they, walking into the woods, look ahead, and oh boy. Doesn't matter. The point is the same. The first person whom he meets in the woods is Goody Cloyes. Second is Satan. But it doesn't matter. You'll see one point where it matters a little bit, but it's okay. Goody Cloyes had been his catechism teacher. That is, his religious teacher. Let's say his Sunday school teacher. Important in that culture. Sunday school, church, Puritan America. And he had seen her ahead. And he was embarrassed. Oh, God, she's going to see me here. But wait, she's here. My God, that's impossible. And with her, he walks into the woods. And then he's shocked that she's there. That's impossible. Then ahead, they see the Satan figure. And Goodman Brown is embarrassed and hides for a minute. I guess they don't talk much. He hides because he's so ashamed at seeing Goody Cloyes. But he watches Goody Cloyes and Satan meet each other, and they know each other well. Oh, that's impossible. And then he knows who Satan is perfectly when he changes a stick on the ground to a snake, and the snake slithers away. Is there some doubt about who this is? This is Satan. Superhuman powers. Snake. Evil. And then Goody Cloyes goes on into the woods. Goodman Brown comes out. Then he has the conversation with Satan about father and grandfather. So, little by little, but come on. Goodman Brown must admit he knows who this person is, but he clings to his shock that a person like Goody Cloyes could know Satan, that a person like his own father and grandfather could have known Satan. That's impossible. But wait a minute, all human beings know Satan. And that, of course, is the Puritan point of view, but it's a very good point of view. Satan is a myth, no question. But what Satan represents, we know. And a moment's attention to our own thought will convince us of that. The first spiteful little thought we have, the first jealousy we have, the first resentment or anger or lust or illicit curiosity or just thought about anything. This is a puritanical, Calvinistic, Lutheran analysis of what man is. Man is sinful, and we know it, and it's inescapable. Okay, so young Goodman Brown, in other words, is playing a game, is clinging to innocence. Now Satan disappears. I thought I knew every detail here, but I've obscured a couple of these things, but the general outline is still there. And with each step he takes to go into the woods are getting darker. He's feeling more uncomfortable, but he takes those steps. And by taking those steps, he makes it almost impossible for him to leave those woods. He's headed for the heart of darkness, so to speak. I'm using that expression not as Conrad uses it, but it's not totally different. He's headed for the heart of those woods. As he's walking along, he hears horses behind him. Ashamed, of course, embarrassed, he ducks into the woods, as we say. And who comes riding by but the deacon, that is the clergyman, the pastor, and the minister. The minister is the clergyman. The deacon is his right-hand man, a person of high moral standing in the community. The two high-ranking figures in the church, in the local church. Oh, shocking! And they're talking, the two men, and are talking about, boy, they wouldn't want to miss this, what shall I say, the ceremony tonight. Oh yes, I would rather miss an ordination than miss this. Good times at ordinations. An ordination is the sacrament, the ceremony by which a person becomes a clergyman. Especially important sacrament in the Roman Catholic Church. But very important, though for Luther, was that one of the three sacraments that he allowed? Baptism, marriage, and ordination. One of the sacraments that Luther allowed, I'm pretty sure, striking away the other four. Well, what they imply is that ordinations are wild parties, a lot of drinking, not too surprising there. All this very shocking to Goodman Brown. And now he's really shocked as they ride by, and he thinks, oh my God, all is lost. The world is an evil place. Oh my God, the world is an evil place. Shock. Self-deception games. Now we don't quite know the depth of the game yet. Watch. Just then he looks up into the dark sky, and what comes floating down out of the sky but pink ribbons? Wow. His faith. Now, symbol of his wife. But now we realize with absolute certainty the pink ribbons are symbols. Faith is an allegory, and the pink ribbons represent his faith. And it's very important to analyze these, I think. If the pink ribbons represent and symbolize his faith, then what is the nature of his faith? His nature of the nature of his faith is that of many people, I'm quite sure, especially young. By definition, a young person's faith equals pink ribbons. That is, cute, childish, untested, immature, lacking depth, shallow, silly, based on silliness, based on the silly things that are taught in a Sunday school session. It's like playing games with Barbie dolls, I'm sure. And it has to be. They're young. But of course their faith is young too. And their faith is silly. And all those adjectives that I said. And young Goodman Brown's faith was silly, frivolous, silly. And he loses his faith seeing this, because this implies that his wife, literally, is also a sinful creature. What are those ribbons doing deep in those woods? And he starts to run frantically through the woods, not on the path. He's hitting branches, he's being cut and all that. He's gone berserk. He has gone mad temporarily. And this is very important, because this is a decision. Madness like this is a conscious decision. Are you saying that a person makes a decision to go mad? In a situation like this, yes. And that's what Hawthorne's saying too. That is, he has chosen. Now, what is happening here allegorically, in a moral allegory, is that a person suspends the will. Now, our human will, like our reason, these are the marks of God in us. If we are created in the image of God, if that expression has any meaning at all, and we see what silly meanings it seems to have, and this goes a little bit to the heart of Christianity. I'm going to save a minute to talk about this. In my opinion, I've got to talk about that. But anyway, for our story, he, in the moral allegory, what's happening to the soul at this point? The soul gives up reasoning, stops reasoning, it just plunges into whatever peccant, sinful activity it's decided to enter at that time, sexual or stealing or hurting someone or killing someone, don't know. Choose your sin. The soul has given up making rational choices anymore and just plunges into this evil action. That's what's happening allegorically at this moment in the story. And he screams, and he's kind of crazy, and he's running more and more into the heart of the woods. By now, it's total darkness, and he comes to a clearing. There are torches there, and who's there? Everybody. Everybody in his town. Allegorically, everybody in the world. Everybody in the world is there. And this is a kind of initiation ceremony, it seems, allegorical. Who's going to be initiated here? There's a leader who looks a lot like that man earlier, Satan, of course. And he stands in front of the group and he says, who is to be ordained, so to speak, or initiated here tonight? And a woman steps forward, Faith, and a man, and young Goodman Brown, steps forward too. And he's still shocked. He guards, he preserves, he nourishes, he cherishes his shock. His shock is important to him. And this is one of the profound things in this story. What an amazing story. Much better moral allegory than, wow, almost any. Much longer. So, and at the emotional climax of the story, he says, he turns to his wife, Faith, and he says, Faith, Faith, resist the evil one and look to the sky. Now, we think, oh, he wants to resist, or he wants his faith, he wants to preserve his faith, right? Allegorically, that seems to be what happens. And just then, everything disappears, and he wakes up. He was sleeping in the woods. Real, unreal, we don't know. The events, did they happen or not? Don't know. And he walks into the village. He sees the minister. Oh, disgusting man. The deacon, bad man. He sees Goody Cloys. Oh, sinful, sinful creature. I will have nothing to do with them. I hate them all. And all the rest of these people, they were in that ceremony too. They are all sinners, and I will have nothing to do with them. You see what's happening here. And he returns home, and he is disgusted by his wife too. And from there on, he lives, and he lives a long life, the author tells us. But in his life, he avoided contact as much as possible with the people around him. But we notice, by the way, that he fathered 13 children. He didn't entirely avoid his wife at night, did he? Did he? No, he didn't avoid her then. He probably avoided her in the daytime, though. And when he died, they left no hopeful words on his tombstone. Okay, let's summarize what this is really about. Yes, this is a moral allegory. But in this moral allegory, the greatest sinner is the man who tries to preserve the illusion that he is without sin. He commits the terrible sin of pride. And ultimately, I suppose that's what, oversimplifying a little, this is a moral allegory, an analysis of pride. His sinlessness was his greatest sin. And he held himself to be above others, self-righteousness, and he judged them. Judge not, lest ye be judged. So he judges everyone from a position of moral superiority. What is most important to this man, and there are people like this for sure, was his own sense of his own moral superiority. And I sometimes think that Christianity likes to preserve this illusion for itself collectively. Christians like to regard themselves as morally superior to other people. Well, they can't demonstrate that because obviously we do a lot of bad things. But it's kind of implied in a lot of Christians' attitude. And I suspect this is, this is Bible Belt Christianity, and this may be Korean Christianity too, especially Protestant. Sorry, try it. See if it works. It's very important to some Christians to regard themselves as morally superior to other people. Even if they can't literally detail this in their lives, the mere fact that they are Christians lends them moral superiority, and this is the most important thing to them in their lives. Try it. I think it's true. What's most important is not their faith. What's most important is their sense of their own superiority and the superiority of their group. And thus they know and others don't. Thus they have the truth, others don't. Thus they are saved and others are not. As soon as anyone says that, that person is young Goodman Brown, right there, is a far greater sinner than the people whom he or she might be addressing. Profound, very profound story. Okay. I forget. I was going to talk about something, but close enough. Now, is this story about self-deception? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what this story is about. This story, like Ms. Brill, which is a minor footnote in profundity, is still, Ms. Brill is profound, though. And I shouldn't say that. Really, they're very similar. This is just within the framework of religion, specifically Christianity. What both stories show is the immense will not to know truth. In my little theory, religion itself is the will not to know truth. Religion itself symbolizes the will not to know truth. The will to believe this, this, and this, and this, absurdity, is symbolic of the will not to know truth. The reciting of the Apostles' Creed, in my opinion, is emblematic of the will not to know truth, because it says, I know the truth. And that already is a lie. Try it on. It's already a lie to say, I know the truth. About anything. About anything. And it's usually disguised as faith. I believe, I have faith. But what people who, with this faith, mostly are saying is, not faith, I know. You don't, I do. Better join me, or you're wrong. You're damned. Nonsense. Worse than nonsense. Reprehensible. Sinful. Perfect example of sin. Of course, sin is at its most subtle in religion. The great minds have always known that. But the common minds try not to know that. And so religion becomes simply another disguise, another game that we play in an effort to nourish our little vanities, our little vanity, to think highly of ourselves. Young Goodman Brown is a profound story, and I'm applying it universally. Sorry, but I'm going to say it one more time. Most religion is young Goodman Brown. Most religion is self-deception. Most religion is, I believe, vanity. The desire to think well of oneself. The desire to think oneself superior to others. The desire to say, I know, because I believe in many people, I think, try it, tell me if I'm wrong, I believe that many people when they say, I believe, really mean, I know. And what they even mean beyond that is, I know and you don't. That's the important part. And that's young Goodman Brown. Okay, sorry, but this is there a more profound story than that? I don't think so. Okay, now I'm going to tell a second one, Worn Path. Eudora Welty. What a masterpiece of a different kind. Eudora Welty, Southern writer from Mississippi. Worn Path. Classic. Another kind of allegory. The main character is Phoenix Jackson. She's a very old black woman. Very old. We never establish how old, but 80? And she is walking to Natchez, Mississippi. Doesn't matter. Deep South. That's all that really matters. And even that doesn't matter much. It's not really a racial story at all. Okay, she's walking. Phoenix, her name already is interesting. The bird that is reborn out of its ashes. Okay, suggesting a kind of immortality even. But Phoenix already implicitly raises the issue of death. Excuse me. Okay, she's walking through the woods. She has a long way to go. And it becomes kind of symbolic as she says she walks up a hill in pine. Pine is death. Coffins are made of pine. Down the hill in oak. I think that's the way it goes. It could be reversed, but it doesn't matter. Some people say that's impossible, and some people say, I've seen it many times. I don't know. But there's certainly allegory going on here. And then at a certain point she gets her dress gets caught in a thorn bush. Well, this is certainly allegorical. Thorn bush, symbolic of Satan. Now, this woman is wonderful. She is full of faith. We realize she's losing her eyesight. Her eyesight is very bad, but her faith is mountainous. And she's cheerful, and she talks to herself a lot. And she talks to the creatures around her, the woods, the trees, the animals, everything, the birds. She talks. And we think this woman is full of faith. What a remarkable woman. But a little closer look and we realize people who live alone talk to themselves a lot. This woman probably lives alone. Now, it takes a couple of readings to pick things like this up. Not one. In case I've never said it, one can almost never understand a short story unless, I've done a lot of short stories. I know a lot about short stories, I guess. Or I think that I've looked deeply into some of the best, anyway. An experienced reader can pick things up. But an inexperienced reader will never understand a story on one reading. Never. Never. And some need 10. And very sharp readers need 4 or 5. So don't worry. Reread them. First time you read it, you can assume you misunderstood. There's no way. You misunderstood. Okay. If you understood, it's a bad story. And that's certainly true of this story. And it's true of young Goodman Brown too. All these stories. Impossible. Okay, so disengages her skirt from the thorn bush, cheerfully walks on. Then a very important detail, but of course the first-time reader doesn't know what's important and what's not. For example, she sits down to... she walks... A log is stretched across a kind of ravine, deep, don't know. But she has to walk across there. She closes her eyes, gives a little prayer maybe to God, typical of her, and then closes her eyes and walks across that log. What courage! What faith! Remarkable. Remarkable. Wonderful woman. And she is a wonderful woman. I'll reassure you right now. I'll give away the ending a little bit. She is a remarkable, wonderful woman. But we don't know the extent. We don't know why, and we don't know how. Not yet. So far, superficial. After this remarkable display of faith, she sits down and rests for a minute. And as she rests, she seems to see a little boy who, smiling, reaches toward her, offering her a piece of cake. She actually reaches out, but then of course it's an illusion, it disappears. We have no idea what this means at this point. And this is amazing. Okay, then she gets up and continues. Walks. What courage. And we see crows circling around. Death. We see, I'm leaving a couple of things out, but that's enough. There's death is around. And evil. Okay. Then she comes to a certain place. Let's see, I don't want to leave anything out. Oh, she has to cross a field, and she has to get down, and in order to get through the fence, this 80-year-old woman, and then she sees somebody ahead, but she can't stop. She cannot stop on her quest, because that's what this is. This is a quest. And so she tentatively kind of approaches and reaches out and touches this person. It's a scarecrow. It's a scarecrow, not even a real person. And she laughs and she thinks, oh, I'm so silly, losing my sight, blah, blah, blah. But what we get out of this is her amazing, indomitable, good word, will to make this quest, to go on this journey. She must. She must. What faith, what courage. And she does have faith and courage. But we don't understand. Okay, then through the field, at a certain point, she comes to a opening maybe. I might finish this, and yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll be able to, we're on schedule. Comes to a place, and she falls down into I forget how, but she falls down, but she lands on shrubs, and it's like she lands on a bed. This old woman who might be falling to her death lands like on a cushion, like cushions. She's not hurt at all. Allegory. Allegory. The author constantly taunts us almost, certainly holds out, tantalizes us with allegory in this story, but in the end it's not an allegory. Lots of allegorical elements, though. I don't think I've ever quite figured out why the author does that. Maybe just playfully. That's a little irresponsible of an author. An author must have strong reasons for doing things like that. But even if I knew that she were playing with us, this is still an absolutely great story. Okay, so she's lying there, kind of full of confidence that someone will come along and help her, because that's what she is. She's full of this faith. Along comes a man who's hunting, and he's got a black dog. Ooh, black dog, ooh, Satan. More allegory. And he says, Granny, let me help you up there, and he helps her up. And as he's helping her up, oh no, there's another dog. Oh, there's another dog there. No. The hunter doesn't have the black dog. The hunter has his hunting dog. Along comes a black dog, and the black dog and the hunting dog start to play. Now, this is interesting. And the fact is that when Phoenix was getting up, he saw that the hunter had dropped something shiny. And so Phoenix says to divert the attention of the hunter to the dogs, because the dogs are playing and blah, blah, blah. That's right, go get him, go get him. She who can barely see at all. And the hunter goes after them, we don't know. And then she, Phoenix, slowly, so slowly, eyes closed of course, stoops down to reach for the shiny thing, gets it, puts it in her pocket. It's a nickel, 5 cents. Wow. And she says very key words. I come to stealing. Lord gonna punish me. I come to stealing. That's important, because it's our acknowledgement. That's how we know that she intentionally diverted the attention of the man away to the dogs so that she could get that coin. And that is stealing, basically stealing. The man then comes back, and for some reason, we don't understand it quite, but we will, sticks the rifle in her face. Now, why would he do that unless he knew exactly what had happened? And that's exactly what happened. And Phoenix says, I'm not very afraid, because I seen plenty go off much closer to me even. And he smiles at her, smiling, admiring her courage, as all must, and says, I'd give you another nickel if I had it. You see what happened? I think this man is Satan. He knew perfectly well that he had dropped the coin. If that's the case, he knew perfectly well what she was doing when she diverted his attention. And so both of them acknowledge that this game has been going on, right? And he says, keep it. He admires her. Even Satan admires her. You can get that meaning out of it. That's not so important. What is important is that the game that went on there. She's a sharp woman. She's no fool. She's a good woman. But she certainly stole that nickel. Okay. Well, Granny, you shouldn't be going on these walks. Got to get medicine for my son. Maybe she says that, or my grandson. Maybe she says that now. Got to get the medicine. We don't know. Not grandson. Got to go to Natchez twice a year, I think. Maybe once a year anyway. Around this time. Oh, by the way, it's December. Christmas. Christmas season. Deep South. Christmas. Wow. So, she continues on her journey. She enters Natchez. And at a certain point, she notices that her shoe is untied. And she stands there kind of bewildered. And a woman comes along with packages, Christmas gifts, in her arms. The woman wearing something about the perfume that she's wearing. I don't know if it's cheap perfume or what. And that would be interesting too. She sets down her boxes and ties Phoenix's shoes. Spirit of Christmas. To me, a very interesting but definitely secondary question is the woman black or white? That is interesting. But she could be white. And from that point of view, from a northern point of view, I think people would agree. That was part of the hypocrisy of southern segregation and southern racism. Got to do some nice things for the darkies around Christmas time. Look, I'm a Christian. Gets down and ties those shoes. Wonderful. Hypocrisy. But a nice gesture too. Okay. So, she continues. She finds the building that she must go to, a kind of clinic, I guess, hospital. She's got to climb stairs to get, because it's on the second floor. She's exhausted. Look what this woman has gone through. She's walked miles, 10 miles, maybe? Huge. And she's going to have to walk back. Huge. Unbelievable. But, so, on her way up, she sees this gleaming, just like something in a frame, probably the doctor's credentials, his medical degree from medical school or something. But for her, it's gleaming. It's like paradise. It's like heaven. Because that's where she thinks of herself as being now, in the doctor's room. She sits down, and a woman says, what do you want, old woman? Why are you here? Can I help you? And she's exhausted and dazed for a minute. She just sits there, actually unable to remember why she's there. And an older assistant comes along. Oh, that's old Phoenix Jackson. That's old Grandma Jackson. Come here to pick up medicine for her grandson. Grandson, very sick, swallowed some lye, L-Y-E. Lye is a disinfectant, terribly toxic. If a person swallowed lye, it's like swallowing Clorox or some terrible acid. Likelihood of death or extreme damage to the lungs and anything it touches. Grandson swallowed lye. And she comes for medicine faithfully because she's got to get the medicine for her grandson. Okay. I plumb forgot, says Phoenix. Yep. Charity case, she says, that is, give her the medicine, no charge. And the woman says, giving her the medicine, I've got a penny or two here, let me give you a penny. And Phoenix says, 5 pennies makes a nickel. She wants 5 pennies. To go with the nickel she has equals a dime, right? And they laugh, admiring her once again, and give her 5 pennies. Now she's got a dime. She's got the medicine. She leaves the clinic, goes down, and outside she buys from a street vendor a paper windmill, key, Miss the windmill, miss the story. Miss the little dream about the hallucination about the boy with the cake, miss the story, because that's how it works. Windmill. Now there's only one very famous windmill in literature, and that's from Don Quixote of Cervantes, which I'm not qualified to discuss, though I read it once. It's long. And to me it's not as great as it's touted to be, but that's okay. Anyway, that windmill, Don Quixote, who is basically insane, but a romantic insane, his mind has been poisoned by reading chivalrous romances, wants to be a knight and oppose evil wherever he finds it, and rescue people, and do good things. Be a knight. And with his sidekick, his assistant, his squire, Sancho Pancha, what's it? Okay, Sancho. And he sees a windmill in the distance, and he says, "There's a villain, there's a giant. I must oppose that giant." He attacks the windmill. In other words, windmill is symbolic of illusion, if not madness. She buys that windmill. Miss the windmill, miss the story. Why windmill? Yes, the boy's dead. The boy swallowed lie, the boy is dead. But wait a minute. What about that hallucination back there? How did he die? How was he injured? Phoenix, obviously, I would say, made cake for the boy, but by mistake, reaching for flour, lye is similar to flour, she put lye into the cake. The boy ate the lye. Terrible suffering. Why did she make that mistake? Losing her eyesight? Very reasonable. How does she feel? Consumed with guilt. Consumed. With a terrible guilt. And so she must make this quest. She must get that medicine. She must preserve the idea that he's still alive. Okay? Must. Self-deception? Obviously. Terrible self-deception. Painful, searing self-deception. Self-deception on which her existence depends. Her psychological existence. Because to acknowledge that the boy is dead is to acknowledge that she killed the boy. She can't acknowledge that. Do you mean then, do I mean that the boy is kind of still sitting there in the kitchen as she describes him once with blankets around him? I think so. Wow. Wow. No, I don't think that's very believable, and it's kind of allegorical, because the body would have decayed, decomposed, terrible things. No, the body can't be alive at this point. Though the lye is a disinfectant, maybe. I don't know. Not important. Terrible self-deception. Another self-deception on which one's psychological existence depends. We've seen 3 of the 4 now. Miss Brill, young Goodman Brown, and now Phoenix Jackson. 2 of them have been culpable. Miss Brill is culpable, guilty. Young Goodman Brown is profoundly guilty. Poor Phoenix Jackson is not guilty. But desperation. She's motivated by desperation. Miss the windmill, miss the story. Miss the cake, miss the story. Okay. Now, I'll get started on one. I guess it better be That Evening Sun. Yeah, That Evening Sun is a little long, but I have about 10 minutes to go, so we'll be okay. That Evening Sun by William Faulkner. Great story. As great as these others, really I don't think so, but we'll see, maybe. Deep South. Faulkner spent his whole life in Mississippi, and he wrote about Mississippi in all of his stories, almost all of his large production. Novels and stories, Mississippi, it's what he knew best. He invented a county in Mississippi, which he populated with the families that interested him, and analyzed them. Nobel Prize, well, Faulkner. None of the others has won a Nobel Prize. Okay, so we have a narrator here. The other stories, no. we have a narrator who is a participant of the story, because we know he says, back when I was young, I remember her name Nancy. Nancy, of course, lived in the Negro section of town, poor, but she used to come and do our laundry, people's laundry. She would pick up the laundry, singing, go do the laundry, then deliver the laundry. But Nancy did some other things for money too, basically prostitution. But I mean, the life that they led, okay. And but remember, we have a narrator here, and part of the meaning of this story is to determine the narrator. And I believe that will all depend on one short line late in the story. Miss it, miss the narrator. Miss the narrator, miss the point. So it works. So you can see the need to reread and ask questions and store away information. What does that mean? I don't know, but I better store it away because I might need it later, and maybe it will go with this piece of information, which will provide the key to the whole story. So another reason to read these stories 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times is really you must retain a lot of the details. And if you can't retain them, then you won't understand the stories. You must. Students used to ask me, should we memorize these stories? What, do you want us to memorize them? Almost, yeah. Because what I would do with students is say, okay, next class, Maryland now, college classes, for the next class read this, and this short story. 3 or 4 usually, 2 if they were longish. And then I would come to class. I want them to keep their books closed. Tell me the story. Tell me the story. Book closed. You can't open the book. If you can't tell it with it closed, you haven't read it. You haven't read it. It's as if you haven't read it. And you apply that when you read these stories too. Because if you're dealing with serious literature, as these are obviously serious literature, then you must know it. Not, let's see now. Now, in the years I have lost many of the details. I haven't reread them, don't plan to, because I feel that I understand the heart of these stories. But the first-time student has to retain a lot of details. And I'm jumbling some. It doesn't bother me at all. Okay. Not important. But when I was teaching them, I knew every detail. After all, I taught this course probably 20 times. And I loved it. And each time, maybe try a new story here and there, but most of the stories I had taught at that time as a college teacher 15 times, so I knew them almost verbatim. And the students did too. Great course, great. Okay. So, and yes, the narrator says, I remember one time when Nancy was being arrested for prostitution, and the deacon, that word again, high church official, the deacon, whatever his name is, was there, and Nancy said, Deacon man, you owe me for 3 times. 3 times the deacon has been her customer as a prostitute, right? And the deacon was so embarrassed and shocked that he kicked her in the teeth, knocked out a tooth. Did the police do anything to the deacon? No. Nancy instead was put into jail. That's the way it worked. Really, it kind of still works that way a little bit. The life of a prostitute is pretty much Paquette in Candide, which we did a couple of weeks ago. For the life of a prostitute, see Paquette. Anyway, but Nancy, it seems that Nancy was high on something, probably cocaine. She was put into the jail cell, and it turns out that she tried to kill herself there. Took her dress off, hung it up, tried to hang herself. But she couldn't stop her hand, this is a detail that affects me powerfully, from grabbing the dress. That is, now you want to say she loved life, feared death. The mixture of the two is profound. Where does one begin and the other end? Are they identical? Maybe. Love of life is fear of death. Maybe, yeah. I can believe that in myself, others. I love life. Fear death. Same thing, I think. That's profound to me because on the subject of suicides, there are suicides and suicides. I love to discuss this, and I'll take 1 minute to discuss it here. The suicide, American style, shotgun or pistol pointed upward in the mouth, boom, through the brain. Chances of survival, 0. Suicide, Korean style, balcony. Balcony is the chosen free Korean style. Jump from the 6th floor, not serious. Might live. Jump from the 20th floor, that was a little more convincing, isn't it? So there are suicide attempts and there are suicide attempts. And anyone who looks into this, and I have only superficially, knows that some suicide attempts are really cries for help. Some suicide attempts are statements, I plan to live, please help me. I thought I had more time here. Back to our story. So Nancy, it turns out, did laundry for the family, the Center family, and I'll get this point in. There are 2 families at the core of this story, a white family and a black family. The narrator is from the white family. Father, lawyer, pretty well-to-do, nice house, 3 children, husband, wife. Black family, Nancy and Jesus, spelled Jesus. Jesus, not important, no allegory here. Hispanic, violent man. His symbol, a razor that he kept down his back so that he can grab it any time. Violent man. Are they married? No. The white family, oh so married, with a nice respectability and a nice house and 3 children, oh my God, fertile. The black family, no children, not legally married, common law, right? Violence. The one reputable, the other disreputable. The one, oh, that's exactly how we like people to be. And the other, oh, terrible. Violence, drugs, cocaine, prostitute. Imagine a married woman, a prostitute. Contrast is at the heart of this story. So I'll develop that tomorrow, I guess.